Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a Brant County Council meeting of October the 22nd, 2021. First thing on the agenda is to take attendance. We're going to do an attendance where you're going to reach out for me and say your name when I call it. Councillor Wheat.
Here.
Councillor McAlpine.
Here.
Councillor LaFerriere.
Present.
Councillor Howes.
Here.
Councillor Bell.
Present.
Councillor Pierce.
Present.
Councillor Chambers.
Right here.
Councillor Miller. Councillor Coleman.
Here.
Councillor Gatward.
Present.
Councillor Miller. I believe that's Councillor Miller without a picture up, but we'll leave him not here until he gets here, I guess. So we'll show that he didn't answer his name, but he's probably.
Oh, no, I'm present, Mr. Mayor.
I thought so. Thank you. We're all present. The second thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, noting that we were given a very lengthy addendum late in the afternoon. It's pretty much just a paper copy or electronic copy of the delegations for tonight. So is there anything to be added to the agenda? Seeking a motion to accept the agenda the way it stands, then please, noting the addendum, Councillor Pierce and Councillor Bell. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest is number 3. You can declare them now if you like, or you can wait until it's appropriate.
Mr. Mayor, can I declare under 4.2 and 4.3?
4.2 and 4.3. Thank you, Councillor Miller.
Yep. Thank you.
Anything else? Moving on then to our delegations. Our first delegation is from Millard. It's Cam Johnson. Hello, Cam Johnson.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Good. Welcome.
Thank you.
And
So it's my pleasure tonight to present the audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2020 for the Corporation of the County of Brant. I have a few minutes, but I won't go through the full audit report. I'd just like to bring to your attention on page 2 of the financials, second paragraph down, it's in our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the consolidated financial position of the county as at December 31, 2020, and the results of its operations, its changes in net assets, and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So this is an unqualified report that we're issuing on these financial statements. A couple of brief points. Just to highlight some of the points throughout the course of the audit is, it is an unqualified report. We do report to the county that we are independent of the county. So we don't have any influence by the county, or we don't influence the county at all. The financial statements themselves, they are the responsibility of management. Working with Heather Mifflin, the county actually drafts the financial statements. We work with her for the notes, etc., and for clarification on the statements. And then we attach our auditor's report to these financial statements. One of the things that we do throughout the course of the audit towards the end is we seek representations from management, disclosing everything to us that we sort of obtained throughout the course of the audit, and we've received that letter of general representation. Report significant matters. We'd like to report that we didn't come across any significant accounting policy changes in the year. This becomes fairly substantial potentially to a client, where in a sense that if you want to change your income figure, you can change your accounting policy. We look at that and we make sure that the policies, any changes to policies, are done on a consistent basis, and also as the policy is sort of representative of the numbers that you want. But we report that there wasn't any significant changes, in significant accounting policies throughout the year. We always take a look at what we've referred to as materiality. Materiality is a number that we use, and we kind of work with it for our testing samples throughout the audit. And it's sort of a factor of at what dollar amount would a change to these statements affect the decisions of the users of the financial statements. And along with that, we also generate what's called a summary of unadjusted differences. That summary has been provided to Heather Mifflin. This year, normally it's quite small. This year, it still is well under materiality. We just came across with a difference in the landfill liability calculation this year, and that's it. So it was very well done. And again, we did not come across any significant audit adjustments throughout the course of our audit. We did not find any evidence of fraud or any other irregularities during the audit. We always do an update to our internal controls, and the internal controls are, how somebody, orders a load of salt and how it gets paid eventually, plus as far as paychecks are concerned, etc. So we always do an update to our internal controls throughout the year, and we do testing of those. We didn't find any significant deficiencies in the internal controls throughout our testing. I'd like to report that we had no difficulties throughout the course of the audit. And working with Heather Mifflin, Heather Bailey, and staff, we received excellent cooperation throughout the audit. So it was very well done. A bit of timing. We started our planning right around the beginning of January, middle of January. We started planning, which related to, getting the engagement letter out and starting to take a look at some information. Most of the audit work began at the beginning of March, that's when we start doing revenues and expense testing, because those numbers really don't depend on December 31st so much as they depend on activity all throughout the year. We started our year-end work more or less in April and continued into July working with Heather. And as always, the tangible capital assets of the county are by far the largest and the most work. Those were done all the way into September and the beginning of October of this year to wrap up the tangible capital assets. But overall, no significant issues. You can see on page 5 of the financial statements, this is your consolidated statement of operations and accumulated surplus. On a modified full accrual basis, right down towards the bottom, we had an annual surplus from operations of $23,233,000. That's not your budgeted surplus, like how the municipality keeps track of it is a bit more on a cash basis. And as you're aware, is your overall surplus for your accounting records in the current year were $2,071,000. Our number doesn't include tangible capital assets, for example, while your capital fund incurs expenditures related to tangible capital assets. And the impressive number this year is the tangible capital assets. The county actually maintains a cost of about $539 million of tangible capital assets. So that's roads, buildings, infrastructure, etc. And also during the year, because of funding and the way everything worked, is you were able to actually expend $43 million on your tangible capital assets in the current year. So substantial improvement. 2019, I think you spent about $34 million on tangible capital assets. But again, overall, very good, very well done. May I ask through the mayor if there's any questions?
Are there any questions for Cam? Councillor Bell, you're first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Cam. Cam, I enjoyed reading those numbers. They're good numbers to read. I have one question, which is on note 16, which is about the Brant County Power sale, where you attribute a value, I think, of about $32 million. Whereas on note 6, it appears that we have investments of about $40 million. Do we have additional investments over and above those from Brant County Power that you account for?
Yes. So what you do have is, if you recall, when Brant County Power was sold, at the time, I think council agreed to set that money aside. So the net proceeds from the sale were $31,516,000, and that was added to your investment portfolio. On top of that, there are other investments that are being held by the municipality. But that's always sort of the basis. And again, the point behind that, I think, was the plan was to be able to spend the interest that, the investment income that was earned from the hydro sale, but keep the capital intact.
Yeah, thank you for that, Cam. I thought that was the case. A comment, Mr. Mayor, if I may. I think David Miller and I are members of the, and I think Joan as well, members of the investment committee. we have met once in 3 years. I think it's appropriate to meet again, and my motive behind that is to encourage us to think about spending some of this $40 million that we have accumulated in investments for the benefit of the community.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Any other questions for Cam? Oh, it's wonderful to see an audit like that come through, Mr. Johnson. Thank you. Thank you for your magic fingers.
Okay, well, on behalf of Millard, Ross, and Rose Brewer, I'd like to thank you very much and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Kim.
Sure. Bye for now.
Goodbye. Moving on, please, then to 4.2.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I move the,
Oh, I'm sorry. Move the report, please, to receive.
yeah,
Councillor Howes, seconded by, looking for a seconder.
Councillor Gatward?
Councillor Gatward. All right. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried? Getting ahead of myself, sorry. 4.2, and we're going to excuse Councillor Miller. I'm sorry? 4.2, Councillor Miller is gone. Jennifer Miller is here. There she is. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
You have a report for us.
I do. Can I share my screen? Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Well, can I start?
Yes, you can.
All right. Thank you so much. So thank you for the opportunity to present to you an update on our Belcourt redevelopment project. So next slide, please. So Belcourt is a vacant unit at the John Noble home, and it sat empty for many years. It was a decision of councils to redevelop the unit into a behavioral unit to meet a growing need within the community. The home was approved for 20 new long-term beds in 2 separate applications in 2018 and 2019. Construction of the unit was halted due to the global COVID-19 pandemic, and with new insights from the pandemic, a new design has been drafted to meet the needs of behavioral residents in a safe way through decreasing behaviors through programming and environmental design, and from lessons learned that we learned during the pandemic. Next slide, please. Oh. So I just sort of the slide, yes, slide previous to that one. So why a behavioral unit? Well, individuals who display responsive behaviors are often denied entrance to long-term care facilities because they're not able to integrate into the population, and their behaviors pose a risk to themselves and others. Also, seniors diagnosed with dementia are twice as likely to be hospitalized, twice as likely to visit emergency departments for potentially preventable conditions. And then once hospitalized, they're twice as likely to have alternate level of care days. And also 2 out of every 3 residents in long-term care have dementia. And as dementia progresses, their behaviors are sometimes far more than the home can handle. And the regular units are ill-equipped to deal with behaviors in regular units where staffing is limited. So next slide. Also, there's a lack of specialized behavior units in the community, and it's compounded by the number of individuals who require care. So if you had a resident who had high behavioral needs, the closest place that you can go is Hamilton. And there's one in Kitchener, but to go to these centers, often elderly spouses would have to commute to travel. It's difficult to get into, and often they couldn't due to restrictions of distance. So next slide. So we did come up with a design which was approved by the Committee of Management. And this design has a few key features that just environmentally can reduce behaviors alone. So for example, we have a circular wandering path. So the entire hallway is created as similar to a big circle. And so what happens with that is that individuals with dementia often wander. And when they're forced with decision points such as ends of hallways and things like that, they become agitated. So this design allows them for a continuous, easy wandering path. The other unique feature of this is that it has an interior courtyard. So individuals with dementia can access the outdoors in a safe, dementia-friendly way. The other pandemic-friendly aspect of this design is that it has the ability to separate into two pods of 10. So if there's infection control issues in one side, or we're able to literally stop it at the middle and have 2 pods of 10, which is an ideal solution. Another pandemic solution in this design is that dining rooms are bigger to allow for social distancing, and activity rooms are bigger to allow for social distancing. Also, every room is a private room with its own bathroom, which is also another very dementia-friendly design. So next slide, please. So key features of this design is demolition of the existing Bell Court into new construction, which has its own efficiencies. It's two 10-bed pandemic-ready subclusters. It has a wandering loop, secure inner courtyard, and of course, another feature is that we're going to have ambient lighting, special colors. It's going to have all of the research-based environmental designs. And at the request of the Committee of Management, the design is we're going to look at and explore the ability to incorporate a second floor for future expansion options. So next slide, please. Oh, kind of going the wrong way. Yeah, next one. There we go. All right, and I'll turn it over to Shelley.
So building the behavioral unit, and I'll talk about the finances. So the total estimated project costs at this time are approximately $10.2 million. The province provides a number of one-time funding amounts. The home will receive a one-time payment of $250,000 for proposal development. The project will also receive approximately $878,000 cash reimbursement, which is based on the total project costs. The current capital plan has just over $2.3 million for this project. And after factoring in the above one-time monies, a total of approximately $6.7 million will be required. The province will also provide a per diem over the next 25 years, which can be utilized to fund any debt should the municipalities wish to take out debentures. The annual per diem amount on that per diem is $160,819. So if the municipalities decide to debenture, an additional approximate $215,000 annually would be needed to support debenture payments. The Committee of Management directed staff to recommend options for funding, and staff have taken a look at the 10-year capital plan and have revised the 10-year capital plan to support an additional $250,000 in annual debenture payment. And that should the municipalities wish to choose that option. Next slide, please. So progress to date, a feasibility study was done. The home looked at the advantages of renovation versus new build, and what's being proposed is a new build. And as Jennifer mentioned, the home also looked at lessons learned throughout the pandemic. As a result, the new design chosen by the Committee of Management is the new build, which provides increased dining and enhanced infection and control measures. And the Committee of Management have requested that staff investigate options which will allow for the ability of a future second floor expansion and its associated costs. Next slide.
So next steps are approval of the project and capital funds through the 2020 capital budget process, and then we would submit to the Ministry of Long-Term Care our new conceptual design and drawings. Once that's approved, we would execute a redevelopment agreement with the ministry. And we're also going to submit a behavioral unit designation, which may come with additional operating funding, which would be wonderful. From there, we would proceed to construction activities such as working drawings, ministry submissions, tendering, et cetera, and then prepare for anticipated opening and mission of our first resident in January 2024. Next slide. And we're open to questions.
Okay, are there any, first of all, thank you, Jennifer, and these are very exciting times for the John Noble Home. Sitting on the board there is a very exciting place to be sitting right now. So thank you for all you do there. Are there any questions for Jennifer regarding the new build? Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a comment coupled with a question. My comment is good on you to look forward to have the foresight to look at a second floor, which is fantastic thinking right off the hop, rather than understand that we need it later and go, uh-oh. So my question is, let's fast forward into the future now. We need that second floor. Is there going to be any need to close anything on the first floor while the second floor is being built? Has there been discussions on that?
Jennifer?
So through the chair, we are still exploring the option of the second floor. We do have our architect here, Phil Goodfellow. I don't know if he has any comments, which he could address that.
So through the chair, that is a piece that we'll be looking through in this examination of what the impacts would be to add or plan for a second floor. It's not only the cost impact, but also the phasing of it in the future, just to ensure that we don't saddle the county and the city with challenges 5 or 10 years down the road when they want to implement a second floor. So that's part of that feasibility look that we're having at it.
Okay, thank you for that. And again, good forethinking there.
Councillor Bell, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Jennifer. Jennifer, if we put 20 rooms in this building, what level of coverage do we provide to our community? Is that addressing 100% of the need or 20% of the need?
Through the chair, there's a large need for behavioral units throughout the county and the city. Just in ALC, alternate level of care beds alone, we could we'll be able to fill it quite easily. I don't have the exact numbers of who's all out there, but it's a large number. And behaviors, as I've stated earlier, they occur throughout dementia, and they become worse as dementia increases through the process of the disease. So it's difficult to predict exactly what course someone will take, but definitely there's a great need for behavioral units in the area, and we won't address it all.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. And just a follow-up question, if I may, Mr. Mayor, and it relates to the question of second floors. Did you ever consider coming forward with a proposal that had 2 floors already?
Through the chair, we started off with 1 floor, and it was a recommendation of the Committee of Management to look up to a second floor. Initially, our one design was specifically for maybe educational purposes. So we did have a second floor built into the first design, but through the discussions with the Committee of Management, they would like to see it fitted out or perhaps long-term care use in the future. So that was not originally in our first design, no, but certainly it's there now, or thoughts of it there.
Because normally, Mr. Mayor, there is a benefit of economy of scale. So I would hope that if we built it for 40 beds straight away, it wouldn't cost us twice as much as building for 20 now. But maybe Mr. Goodfellow could advise on that.
So that's
sorry. Through the chair, I had lost my mute button. I couldn't see it anymore. There are economies that could be found by increasing the number of beds that could be accommodated on the site, but chiefly the economies would be through proceeding with this project as one project rather than a phased project, meaning building now and then building again 10 years down the road. It is the mobilization on the site, the securing of the site, potential disruptions to residents at the home, which would probably have the largest impact to John Noble Home. So it's not necessarily by doubling it and saying that you're going to do 50% of it down the road that you see any savings.
Councillor Gatward, you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and just for council's information, originally we had approval for 10 beds, and then we applied for a second 10-bed application, which was approved by the ministry. Everything has to go through the ministry. So we only currently have approval for 20 beds and licenses, and they are licensed beds, and they're not easy to get sometimes. I know the province is trying to increase our beds in the province because of the significant issues during the pandemic, but Brant so far and the John Noble has only 20 beds, but we do hope that in the future we can build another 20, and the 20 behavioral beds will free up 20 beds in the existing facility where normal long-term care residents are waiting for a bed. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, Jennifer, you want to respond to that?
Yes, and so just also, the ministry has just within the last couple of days put out another call for long-term care beds. So there is options to apply. So it is out there. They are looking for 10,000 more. So this is, but Councillor Gatward is correct in that you don't know if you're going to get them, and it's, you don't. It's always it's up to the ministry.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Councillor Coleman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and more a comment than a question. And was fully supportive of this back prior to 2018 when I was on the board, when we were talking about the 10 beds. And so this is a win-win situation, no matter whether it's 1 story or 2 stories. We need these, and I will be fully supportive of this as the time goes on. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as Councillor Gatward said, we always had the 10 beds. The next 10 beds were really a surprise. We lobbied the minister. We were in Ottawa, and it was a wonderful surprise that we got the extra 10 beds. And this was the only option brought forward to us as the committee with the infrastructure to build up. So it was really our best option. The other ones were a little bit different. They didn't address the second story or the future. And actually, Councillor Wheat was very vocal and very helpful in reminding us of some of the mistakes we've made in the county by not looking future forward. And it was our best option. And I think, Jennifer, you were happy with the choice of committee. And so I think as a council, we should stand behind this. And I think tonight, if there's no other questions, we're looking for a motion to receive as information. Councillor Gatward?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wheat, that the John Noble Home Belcourt redevelopment update be received as information.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll just call the vote to receive, please. Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. Nice to see you again, Phil.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening, councillors.
Thank you, everyone.
And I believe Councillor Miller is going to stay away for 4.3. And that's the next delegation, which is Julie Powell from St. Joseph's Life Care Foundation and David from St. Joseph's from the center. Hi, David. Welcome. You can begin whenever you like.
Okay, great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So good evening, Mayor Bailey and County Councillors. My name is Julie Powell. I am the President and CEO of St. Joseph's Life Care Foundation. Sorry, do we have our presentation up? Are you guys seeing the presentation? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, we're seeing it now.
Okay, awesome, perfect. And I'm joined this evening by David Wormel. David is the President of St. Joseph's Life Care Center. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight. Next slide. I'm sure everyone's familiar with our organization, but this is just a bit of an overview. We are a campus of care and include a 205-bed not-for-profit long-term care facility, a 10-bed residential hospice, and then St. Joseph's Life Care Foundation, which is the official fundraising organization in support of St. Joseph's Life Care Center. Just before I go any further, I certainly want to make sure I extend a thank you to the County of Brant. We so greatly appreciate your past support of our organization. So thank you so much for that. It really does mean a lot to us. Next slide. So Stedman Community Hospice is a 10-bed residential hospice located in Brantford, and we service Brant County as well as the County of Brant and surrounding communities. We offer 24-hour around-the-clock care for end-of-life patients. And we also have a community outreach program where allied professionals such as nurses and doctors go into the homes of patients to manage pain and symptoms at the bedside. Next slide. So just a few facts about hospice, inclusive of everyone. We have not seen any provincial funding increases since 2004. So a portion of our funding comes from the provincial government, but $1.3 million per year comes from the community through donations. So the government does not fund all of hospice care. A couple more stats about hospice. Just 50% more annual deaths are expected by 2032. So that will place an increased need for hospice. The seniors population is expected to double by 2034. Hospice is 1/3 the cost of hospital acute care. And then one thing I think that surprises a lot of people is no family ever gets a bill for their care at hospice, whether it's residential hospice, community outreach, or any of our support programs or counseling. There are no costs. And hospice really begins before admission and continues after death. Next slide. So just a few statistics on the impact of hospice. This is over a 1-year period. So several numbers up there, just a couple that I really want to focus on in particular is 105 families that we've cared for in our hospice in the last year, 970 families through our outreach services, and then the 21%. So that's the percentage of patients that are from Brant County. And when I spoke with you last year, I shared these same numbers or different numbers, same time period. The numbers for county patients was 16%. So it's actually gone up to 21% of our patients are from the county. Next slide. So I want to share just a few comments about a Brant County family's experience with the hospice. These are photos of Lori Const. Lori was supported in her home by community outreach from Stedman. She was also a patient in her residential hospice. Couple comments from her husband. When Lori arrived at hospice, everything was surreal. Hospice was a gift, an oasis filled with love. Hospice provided Lori with peace and tranquility in her final hours. Lori was free of suffering and free from her fear of death. Stedman Community Hospice promoted what she needed, a peaceful death. Lori Const passed away at Stedman Hospice at the age of 53. Next slide. So I talked to you last year a little bit about COVID and the impacts at the hospice. So it did have a great impact on us here, but care continued throughout the pandemic. No volunteers in our building for well over a year. So there was a need for us to hire additional staff to take on some of those responsibilities. Our programs and services were altered, more of it virtual. Limited visitation within the building, and certainly we had a lot of challenges related to fundraising and our inability to gather. Next slide. So what are we asking you for tonight? We are asking you to consider support for our residential hospice as well as our community outreach program. Last year you supported with a gift of $100,000, and we're asking you to consider the same this year. So these dollars would be for direct patient care and support for families, our certified palliative care staff, and as I said, both in hospice as well as through our community outreach program. So your donation would allow our team at the hospice to continue to support families through the most difficult times of their lives. And as I mentioned, the provincial government does not provide all the funding for hospice. We really do rely on the community to help support the hospice and keep our programs and services operating. I'm actually going to pass it over to David now, and he is going to share some information about our long-term care home.
Great. Thank you, Julie, and good evening, everyone. Next slide, please. I think over the past 19 months, we've all been through rapid change and uncertain times that have left our people feeling quite stretched, strained, and exhausted. And in fact, many healthcare came into the pandemic already feeling depleted. As the pandemic recedes, it will be vitally important to support our people to find a path to resilience. You know, the Long-Term Care Commission has highlighted the need to support and educate long-term care staff, as well as increase the numbers of skilled staff. And healthcare will likely be facing increased staff shortages, and retention will be critical. A focus on integrating resilient strategies and fostering staff wellness at all levels of the organization are going to be key and set us apart from other healthcare work environments. Next slide. On this slide, you'll see on the left or the blue side are the stressors that are a part of our workplace. These are stressors that come from workplace itself, such as policies, structures, and work conditions that contribute to one's experience of stress. On the right hand, or the orange, are the additional stressors that come from those we serve in healthcare. Residents and families interacting with the healthcare system, for the most part, are suffering and struggling in some way. And as a result, our staff and physicians are exposed to suffering and loss on a daily basis and cannot help but be impacted by it. The emotional labor of healthcare providers involves managing the emotional demands of relating with residents and their families as they deal with difficult circumstances. And healthcare workers, they use emotional labor to create and cultivate bonds with those in their care, especially when they wish to reduce a person's anxiety or the need to perform an unpleasant procedure, such as many of our residents that underwent the nasal swabbing. But in fact, emotional labor is often cited as a core component of a care provider's role in making our residents feel safe and comfortable, and the constant need to hide their own emotions so that they can be fully present for those in their care, regardless of their circumstances, can eventually lead to emotional exhaustion. And resilience is a protective process against the negative effects of emotional labor. And by building resilience in our nurses, our PSWs, and physicians, in fact, the whole healthcare team, it's an important strategy in mitigating the stress and the burnout that may be caused by ongoing exposure to the demands of providing exceptional healthcare. And at St. Joe's, we recognize the inherent occupational impacts of doing this type of high stress, trauma exposed work. And we believe that a person's resilience must be supported organizationally through sustainable training, support, and development. Next slide. So our objective is to develop an integrated approach to resilience at all levels of the organization that recognize those inherent occupational impacts of doing that high stress, trauma exposed work that will foster a healthy and compassionate workforce through sustainable structures and process. So in order to build a resilient workforce, we need not only address resilience at the individual level, but also from a team and from a process and structure perspective. So our initiative is designed to take a systems approach to building a resilient, healthy, and compassionate workforce and organization, all in service of delivering a high quality care to our residents. Our funding request is for $70,000, which will provide the funding needed to purchase in-person and virtual training and development programming, coaching, and a host of other support resources needed to create that integrated and sustainable culture of resilience, compassion, learning, and growth. And as you'll see, there's also an opportunity for us to be able to spread the work that we're doing into the future with our Brantford OHT colleagues. And some of the outcomes that we need to measure will be the resilience interventions and the programs that will strengthen our healthcare providers and our interventional teams. We really want to ensure that we're integrating mental health and well-being into these strategies that will foster staff wellness at all levels of the organization, leading to increased staff engagement and job satisfaction, and the increased retention of a healthy and resilient, compassionate team, as well positioning ourselves to meet that ongoing and ever-changing challenges of providing exceptional healthcare to our community. Next slide. So we're committed to excellence and dedicated to discovery. And we really do believe that this is an opportunity to invest in that sustainable and integrated approach to enable St. Joe's to build a resilient, healthy organizational culture, to increase morale and strengthen our position, to recruit and retain really difficult, scarce individuals, and in the interest of serving our patients, our residents, and our community at large. Next slide. So we thank you for your consideration of our request for $100,000 to support the Stedman Community Hospice and the $70,000 to support St. Joe's Life Care. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions for the presenters? Councillor Weech, you're first, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Warmaid, a few years ago, we moved the beds from the John Noble Home to St. Joe's Life Care. There was a funding formula at that time, which was downgraded, less amount of money each year, to a point where approximately 3 or 4 years ago, that funding ran out. Also at that time, when the beds were moved from the John Noble Home to St. Joe's, the County of Brant had a seat on that board. And that seat's been taken away from us. Are you aware of that, sir?
No, I wasn't. But I do believe that we will have an opportunity with 3 vacant positions on our board that will be moving forward very shortly to recruit. And I would be very much supportive of having that position at the board, perhaps occupied by one of the county councillors.
Further, I can't say enough positive things about the hospice. As I had a family member very close to me was a benefit from the outreach team that came out from the hospice, and I can't say enough good things about it. But I'm a little bit concerned when the County of Brant, along with the City of Brantford, operate our own long-term care facility at the John Noble Home, and we're going to be faced with added costs at John Noble Home. You probably just heard the previous presentation by Mrs. Miller, where we're going to be building. And with more building, there's going to be more employees and more costs to operate said building. So I want to be a little bit careful on how the County of Brant spends its money in long-term care, because really the John Noble Home is our long-term care facility. But I want to wrap up by saying I'm actually going to make the motion to move this to budget with a seconder of Councillor McAlpine. But maybe before I have to do that, I just want you to know I'm a huge fan of the hospice, but I'm concerned about funding the long-term care facility because we have our own long-term care facility with the John Noble Home, and I am a huge supporter of the John Noble Home.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gatward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Wormald. The $70,000 for staffing and for training and so on and so forth that you just reviewed with us. We do those things at the John Noble Home through our own programs, and we don't ask for additional funding. You get the same per diem from the province, do you not, as we do?
Yes, that would be correct. I think though our request is specifically for a skilled, trained individual to be able to help support the training of all of our staff and the development of the programming, so that we're able to have these programs to build capacity amongst our staff. So this would be above and beyond what we would have in our funding envelopes. And as I did mention, this has been a discussion at our Brant Ontario Health team, and an acknowledgement that there needs to be investment in our people, and as well as the training and resiliency. And so this is an opportunity that St. Joe's, through this funding, would be able to develop that programming. And we believe there's an opportunity to be able to share this resource, which would include the John Noble Home, as well as our other partners within our OHT.
I see. And a follow-up, if I might, Mr. Mayor. Our HR department at the John Noble does a lot of this work. How many staff are in your HR department at the John Noble home currently?
The John Noble or at St. Joe's?
I'm sorry, at St. Joe's.
We have one HR person,
Okay, thank
one
you.
FTE,
That's
and
what
no other supports, regrettably. And the capacity of those individuals trying to deal with all of the HR issues as a result of the COVID pandemic with the mandatory vaccinations that we're managing, as well as the need to attract and to recruit and retain individuals is an enormous amount of work.
Yes, and I realize that because we have one HR person as well at the John Noble, and she's been awfully busy because of the new rules that the province wants to implement where everyone gets 4 hours of care. But so basically your $70,000 is to hire a person to do this programming and training. Okay.
That's correct.
I just wanted to understand what you were requesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Ferrier?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to David. So David, would this be a one, you're asking for $70,000. Would this be a contract of a 1-year appointment for the position you're looking to hire?
Yes, that would be correct. The opportunity is to develop the programming so that then we can develop the internal capacity to be able to make this sustainable as we move forward. And it's a very different skill set that's required for this type of work than any one of us currently have.
Mm-hmm. So you're asking for a one-time gift from the county, for lack of a better term, in order to leverage that for several years of programming that will not require an additional $70,000 every year from us or anyone else, in order to improve the programming for all the residents, but including the 22% of your residents that come from the county of Brant.
Yes, that would be correct.
Yeah, just so you're aware, through you, Mr. Mayor, to David, this sort of thing may fall in line with some of the community safety and well-being planning that the county has taken on and approved in terms of activities for seniors and some of this. So that may be another avenue to look down for support. I know they have a meeting next Thursday. I can't attend because of work, but perhaps I can ask one of the staff at that meeting to bring this up at that meeting, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gatward? You're on mute, Joan.
Sorry. One other thing I'd like to share, what we have done at the John Noble home that has been very successful. We have partnered with Laurier and Jella through the Board of Education. We've partnered with, I believe, Conestoga, various educational institutions within our community. And we have been very successful through those programs of recruiting students who want to work in long-term care. And it's, once they're at your facility and they do some training, they want to stay or they want to come back. And that's just a tip from the John Noble home. It's working, and they get their training through the education system. So thank you.
Yeah, and just as an aside, we have the similar partnerships and provide the clinical placements for those staff as well, nursing and PSW.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for David or? Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. Obviously, we all know that the hospice is a wonderful place. The county being so big and surrounding Brantford proper, we have constituents in the north part of our county that also are very familiar with the Lassard House, which is another remarkable place where they do wonderful things all day long. And so we appreciate what you do, and we're so glad that you're there for the Stedman, for the hospice. We've all probably been there way too many times, but we're sure glad that it's there when we need to go. And so thank you for all you do, and thank you for what you do at St. Joe's. You do remarkable work. And if there's no other comments, concerns, Councillor Weech, you have something?
Yes, it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McAlpine that this be moved to budget deliberations.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Move to budget. Thank you guys for coming tonight.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, everyone.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank
Good night.
you. Good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good night. Now we'll find Councillor Miller somewhere. Where's Councillor Miller? Is he back? And now we're going to go to 4.4 on the agenda, and we're going to welcome Margaret from the Federation of Women's Institute of Canada.
Thank you. Can I share the screen
Yes.
with you? All right, let me just pull that up. I'd like to share a presentation tonight, and there we go.
Can we make that presentation a little bigger there, Heather? Or is it as big as it goes? I guess
I don't have any control over it.
who's
Not on my
doing
screen.
that?
Mr. Mayor, that might be on your screen. It's fairly large on
Is it all right there?
others, on mine
Okay.
anyway.
All right, good. Thank you.
Okay, so Mayor Bailey, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you for allowing our delegation to present to your meeting. My name is Margaret Bile, President of the Federated Women's Institutes of Canada, and I am here with Lynn McLean, our President-elect, and Linda Mason, our Treasurer, and we are here today to request emergency funding for the Adelaide Hunter Hoodless Homestead. The Homestead is a National Historic Site of Canada, the birthplace and childhood home of Adelaide Hunter Hoodless, a woman ahead of her time and mentor to the other women and families around her. Adelaide is credited as the co-founder of the Women's Institutes, the Victorian Order of Nurses, the Young Women's Christian Association, YWCA, and she also wrote the first textbook for domestic sciences and promoted food security. Adelaide achieved national recognition in her 20 years of public life as a speaker, activist, and author. In a community such as Brant County, we should identify this as a National Historic Site that highlights the development of women's rights, education, health, and food security. We are pleased to acknowledge our connections to the County of Brant community and wish to thank the St. George Business Association, South Dumfries Historical Society, the St. George Lions Club, and the County of Brant for reaching out and collaborating with us. We'd also like to thank Russ Press and Kayla Sickman of the County of Brant Economic Development and Tourism for reaching out to us as well. We were so pleased to see the community members participate in our volunteer orientation at the Homestead. An evening volunteer orientation meeting will be held in the near future. Please enjoy a mini tour of the Adelaide Hunter Hoodless Homestead. A virtual tour is also available online in English and French. Let me get this going. There you go. At our website, www.fwic.ca/Adelaide Hunter Hoodless Homestead. Emily and Roxana, our two archival assistants, have developed some educational programs for outreach to local schools and homeschooling students for use on-site, in school, or on a virtual platform. In 2019, we had started a New Horizons for Seniors programs with on-site workshops and demonstrations. When COVID-19 hit, we had to adapt and share our workshops via virtual gatherings. More than 20 workshops were presented to the end of the grant deadline, which was March 2021. On the online workshops, we were well attended, and they were offered free of charge. These online gatherings were designed to help community members and the community at large to cope with complying with lockdown mandates. We are proud to announce the opening of 2 new exhibits premiering on November 15th. These exhibits are thanks to Emily and Roxana and from suggestions of community members and volunteers. These new exhibits will help to bring awareness and tourism to the County of Brant. We are working towards providing a network of collaboration with local museums, which will also provide awareness of the wonderful heritage and historical opportunities available in the County of Brant on a national level. We hope that these and other projects will be building blocks of and for the county. We were happy to participate in the St. George Apple Fest event and Ontario Culture Days. And it was so heartwarming to see so many community members come to the Homestead for the Paris Port Dover Pipe Band concert that was presented in collaboration with the South Dumfries Historical Society and the band. The Homestead will also be hosting Halloween events on October 29th for both young and old. As you can see, we have been actively applying for grants. Unfortunately, not all of our applications have been accepted. We continue to seek grant opportunities for capital projects and staffing. And just this morning, an email from OTF was received showing grant opportunities that we will be looking into. These are some of the future goals for the Homestead: assist in bringing tourism into the County of Brant and surrounding areas, finish the kitchen and allow for rental and event opportunities, feature the Homestead as a gem of the community, increase the size of the gift shop, upgrade the pavilion for year-round rentals, hire permanent museum staff. Currently, our archival assistants are hired with Young Canada Works grant, which expires at the end of March. It is a shared cost with FWIC paying for the payroll deductions and WSIB. So why do we need emergency funding now? COVID-19 shutdowns and restrictions, bad weather, and staffing issues have created a deficit in revenues. The Homestead is in urgent need of repairs, and as you can see by the budget previously submitted, we are facing another deficit for this fiscal year. Keeping in mind our fiscal period is from April 1st to March 31st. We are facing a winter with increased heating oil costs, maintenance, and snow removal estimated costs are expected to be much higher this year. In order to have the Adelaide Hunter Hoodless Homestead historic site and museum remain open to the public, it will require financial support. The Homestead roof is very close to end of life. A request for quotes to replace or repair the roof has gone out. Lumber shortages have meant an increase in prices, in some cases, shortage of cedar shingles. The front of the building will need to be addressed by spring, early summer. And thanks to a donation of a bundle of cedar shakes, we will be able to replace some of the missing shingles when it stops raining as soon as we can. Another quote addressing cedar shingles or steel roof replacement is expected in the near future. One of the ways to increase revenue and help this with stabilization would be to have our kitchen certified for use. A copy of the County of Brant Health Inspection was previously provided for your reference. Estimated costs to finish the kitchen and meet the health department requirements are approximately $1,500 plus. This cost was determined in 2020, and it does not include professional pest control contracts. We respectfully request to be considered for emergency funding in the amount of $25,000. We also respectfully request that the County of Brant Council consider adding the Homestead to your annual budget for a period of 3 years with stabilization funding. I have 3 years to turn this around. We generate revenue through programming, and to be able to provide programming, we need stabilization. To allow for a stable Homestead, we are asking for setup to engage in 2022, 2023, and 2024. This can be reviewed annually. So after 3 years, our aspiration is that the County of Brant benefits from the heritage and tourism aspects that the Homestead has to offer. It is our goal that the Homestead become a tourist destination in recognition that this gem, the Adelaide Hunter Hoodless Homestead, a National Historic Site of Canada, is an integral part of the community, both locally and nationally, and thereby well on its way to being a viable operation. So I'd want to thank you for your attention. And do you have any questions?
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I'm going to
Margaret.
stop sharing here. There we go.
Who has questions for Margaret? Councillor Gatward, you're first, followed by Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Margaret, for the great presentation. I'm glad that you're so dedicated to the home. It's an important site, and certainly as a National Historic Site, I'm wondering how much funding do you get from the federal government each year?
From the federal government, only grants that we have applied for. We are owned and operated by the Federated Women's Institutes of Canada. Therefore, we have to apply for grants.
And I noticed in your information that you've been denied Trillium grants on a number of occasions.
Right.
Can you tell us why?
Some of the grants that we have applied for, we did not meet their criteria, so we have to reapply.
And change things.
And I will say that the last, I believe that the last OTF grant application that we went through, you may or may not be aware that we did have the homestead up for sale. And at that point, I think they were reconsidering our application.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miller, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think Councillor Gatward asked most of it. It's just in relation to it being a National Historic Site. So just to be clear then, you don't get continuous funding from the federal government because you're an historic site. You have to apply for every dollar.
We do. That's correct.
Okay. Does that give you any, no, it doesn't sound like it from what you've been saying, but does that give you any leverage for any other grant programs, being a National Historic Site?
No, we did get the MAP grant, which is the Museum Assistance Program. But anything that we get from the federal government is through grant applications that have been accepted, and they're far and few between.
Okay. And Mr. Mayor, there's a question I have for staff. I can ask it during deliberations, or I can ask it now. It's up to you.
No, I'd rather you ask it now, Councillor Miller.
I'm just through to staff. I was just wondering, was there any money left over in the community grants budget? Do we know what that dollar figure is, if there's any?
Maybe Robin knows. There she is. Hi, Robin.
Hello, through you, Mr. Chair. There's approximately $34,000 left in the 2021 grant budget.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other, Councillor Pierce and then Councillor Chambers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just clarification on something I thought I heard Margaret say there, that the homestead, they were thinking about putting the homestead up for sale.
We did.
Like, obviously that's not the case anymore, and that's completely off the table, correct?
That is correct at this point in time. Okay, but unless we can turn this around and get some funding, we'll have to consider all options within the next 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mayor Bailey. Through you, I'm just wondering about the emergency nature of your requests, particularly with regard to the roof. Roofs are pretty important things, and with winter coming, et cetera, are you looking at the emergency funding request to be immediate to now, or are you willing to wait through budget deliberations? Or tell me about the emergency nature of the request.
So our operating costs are very expensive, to put it bluntly, and the only income that we receive are through grants and through fundraising and through our programs. So at this point in time, we're looking at a pretty dismal winter. The roof does need to be addressed in the very near future, as well as an oil tank. So unless we have some funding coming up soon, I'm not sure that the heating bills that are going to be coming up are going to be able to be met. Our insurance went up an awful lot. And so we're looking at an emergency, because if we don't do things soon, the FWIC board will be reconsidering keeping the museum open.
Can you just elaborate on what you mean by soon? Are you talking weeks, months, or?
Within the next few months, I think, is when we will be needing some funding. Right now, we do have sufficient funds to meet the next month or so. But we are looking at, the winter's not going to be a very productive as far as people coming into the museum. We know, I live in Niagara-on-the-Lake, so I know what my weather is like here, but I also know what it's like in St. George in the winter. And sometimes the museum's going to have to be closed, even though it's supposed to be open. So tourism and things like that, to bring in capital, is going to be questionable.
Yeah, I'm not a carpenter, but I do know that installing roofs into winter isn't the best time to install a roof.
No.
To that point now where it's getting almost too late for asphalt shingles, but
no,
I think you've answered my question. It's of an immediate concern as an emergency request.
That's correct. But I will say that there is a rubber bladder, or I'm not sure what the correct word is, because I'm not a roofer either, but there is a rubber underneath the cedar shingles. So we do have some missing. As far as I know, we haven't had, knock on wood, we haven't had any leaks as of yet. So we've had a lot of rain, and right now it's holding up. But I will tell you, the front of the house is in desperate need of repair.
Thank you. Councillor Laferriere.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Margaret. I guess maybe if you could provide a little color on this concern, which is we want this to stay open. We want it to be viable. We also don't want to give thousands of dollars and then it's still sold 4 months from now.
No, we're not going to turn around and sell it in 4 months. I will read to you our press release that the FWIC put out, and that was on July 20th. Mm-hmm. And so this was after the board had decided that we weren't going to sell it. So at a meeting of the board of directors of the Federated Women's Institutes of Canada on July 19th, 2021, the decision was made not to sell the Adelaide Hunter Hoodless Homestead, but to keep it. The change in their decision was the result of tremendous response and outpouring of offers for help and support from the community, WI members, WI branches, and the Brant County members as well. The FWIC WI Canada has operated the homestead for more than 60 years and would like to continue to do so in the future. They value the contributions made by Adelaide Hunter Hoodless to the community at large and to the Women's Institute movement. In order to have the Adelaide Hunter Hoodless Homestead Historic Site and Museum remain open to the public, will require the commitment and financial support of the community, WI members, and Brant County. The increasing costs of operations, FWIC WI cannot do it alone. So following in the footsteps of Adelaide Hunter Hoodless, the Federated Women's Institutes of Canada is a national network for women and families to promote leadership and personal development opportunities through education, advocacy, and fellowship. So there we are. So we have had a lot of outpouring. We've had some donations come in. We've actually had a donation of $13,000 or $15,000, sorry, come in. That's going to help for the short term, but you will also see that with the wages, our share of that is $10,000. So every time we turn around, we're putting in more money and more money into the museum And so we're at a point where we do need your help.
No, I understand. And thank you. I did read that in the summer when it came out. And I think a lot of people in the community are very supportive of the decision to reverse course on the sale. And I hope we can be helpful. But I just wanted to make sure, because you also brought up, the potential need to reverse the reversal of the decision. And with that being discussed, I think with that response, that helps us to understand a bit more of, yes, it's serious, but we can invest without it being, sold in the near term. And that's all I wanted to suss out there. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for your question.
Are there any other questions? I have a couple of comments. Councilor McAlpine, do you want to go first?
I was just going to make some comments too.
All right, well, you can make yours.
So I was just, yeah, okay. No, I reached out to the Adelaide Hoodless home there when I heard that it was a possibility of it going up for sale. And I was really impressed with the community and how concerned they were about it, because they didn't realize that they were at that point. And part of that's just with COVID-19 and the just lack of communication. But over the last few months, I've been able to reach out to Margaret and her team that are working there at the Homestead. And I've just been really impressed, with the work and the quality of the team that they have there. And I think they have a really good opportunity to, with a little help from the county, to really make this a viable operation. And so I just wanted to encourage the council to support them in going forward. So, and yeah, that's my comment there.
Thanks, Councilor McAlpine. Mine is along the same line. When I saw the for sale sign going up, because I heard the rumors that they were going to sell it, and I thought, oh no, they won't do that. How could they do that? And all of a sudden the sign was there, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to do that. And then I knew, I walked the property and I thought, this is going to sell like in 10 minutes. It's the most beautiful piece of property you can imagine. And they did get offers in right away. And then I started to talk with Margaret and people, and it's just sort of, I don't like to say no brainer, but it's just such a wonderful combination for the county to join in on, because first of all, the property is beautiful. And I mean, it's our own little sort of heritage village, and it's very locally based and has everything to do with everything about South Dumfries and St. George. And the things that we can offer these people, I think, not just the cash injection of an emergency grant, which we should do, I think, but we can shovel their snow. I mean, I can't say this because I haven't talked to staff. I shouldn't be saying this maybe, but I mean, to shovel their snow and to cut their grass, we have people doing that all day long at arenas and parks and all things like that. And not that it's a big deal financially, but it's something that would help a great deal if it were constant. It's very much the way the city of Brantford handled the Sanderson Center when they saw that the Sanderson Center, no matter how beautiful it was, couldn't do enough work to pay its own bills. And they made it a department of the city of Brantford. And I think the Adelaide Hunter Hoodless Homestead is of that caliber to the county of Brant. It's something that we can wrap services around with programming, with recreation. We can have badminton tournaments. We have Easter egg hunts. Anything with that Victoria sort of bonnet on it could all be staged at the Homestead, because it's already there and it's authentic and it comes with its own story. So it's our own little Bell Homestead. And until I saw the for sale sign on it, I just thought it would always be there. So I think that was our warning. If we're going to do something, we need to do it. If we're not going to do anything, we need to say that up front too. Maybe a little bit later, but I think it's time for staff and the county, and I would certainly be available to have meetings with the local Women's Institute. I was there this week picking up brochures. It's a wonderful little place, and I would hate to see it go to the highest bidder for a developer to put 7 more houses on a very pretty piece of the county. So I certainly would encourage council to get in front of this, because once it's sold, and you can't fault people for selling things when they need to. So with that, is there anyone else that has anything to say? Any comments? If not, there is no resolution. Can I get, what do you want to do with this, council? Councilor Chambers?
I think we should honor the request due to the emergency nature of it and due to the significance of the museum to the county and to the country, and recognizing that part of the rural fabric of Brant County and Ontario and the country are the women's institutes of the areas. So I have no problem in supporting the emergency request. So I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Wheat, your hand is up. You'll second it?
I wasn't going to second that. I had something separate, but I will support Councillor Chambers' motion. But I really look at it needs a roof, and we've got to get a roof on before winter, or there could be more problems by spring. And asphalt shingles look like the cheapest route to go. And I don't have a problem making the motion to get that, give them the money to get asphalt shingles on a roof and get it done right away. If you go back 3 or 4 slides, the cost was there, Mr. Mayor. And I know it did not exceed the number that Robin Hewitt gave us that we've left in reserve.
Councillor, just to bring it to your attention before, I'm getting a seconder from Councillor Ferrier. Just keep it on the floor. Do you want to comment, Councillor Ferrier?
Yeah, I'd also, I'm just supporting it to get it on the floor. I will support it as well. But would it be a friendly amendment through you to Councillor Chambers to add that we also, as a county, have staff meet with to see about other support, which is basically what you were saying, Mr. Mayor, whether it's grass cutting or shoveling or whatever it might be that we can offer in terms of some operational support for the meantime.
Yeah, you find that's a friendly amendment, Councillor Chambers? Councillor House?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, yes, just to be clear, the ask was $25,000, I believe, right?
Yes.
And so just to be clear on this motion, and I'm in support of it, to grant them the $25,000 amount immediately as an emergency funding situation. But then I think as part of our motion, we should be referring them to our grant process for their ongoing desire for support, which it sounds like they need.
Thank you. And also, Councillor Wheat, they did say that they had a donation of some cedar shakes there, and they do have a membrane down now to support the cedar shake. So I would hate to see us do the asphalt when the cedar shake thing, the authentic roof, could be put back instead of a quick fix. That's just my thoughts. Councillor Pierce?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I was going to suggest the same thing. I think, if we're going to put money into shingles, I would suggest we set it so it's good for the winter, because you're going to have a very tough time getting somebody to do it at this time of year, A, and B, I agree with the fact that I don't want to put an asphalt shingle down just to, a year down the road, take that off and put the cedar shingles onto it, which are what should be there. So I'm definitely in support of this. Let's get it fixed up so it gets it through the winter and we can get this stuff done as soon as possible. But I would agree to do the cedar shingle rather than the asphalt at this time.
Yeah, okay. And maybe too, as part of that direction too, we could also send it to staff to see what wraparound services we could also put toward that in recreation. Maybe get Kathy Valentine involved and Russell Press involved, and just take charge of this place, because to see the for sale sign really did it was an unsettling feeling to think that it could just disappear. Councillor Gatward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say we have a new MP in Larry Brock, and I wonder if the Women's Institute and the group supporting the Homestead have gone to him yet to get some assistance from the federal government, because this is such an important site. I'm sorry, I have a visiting dog.
Thank you, Councillor Gatward.
So to answer your question, may I, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So no, we haven't approached your new member of parliament, but we are going to be presenting a for the new exhibit that's coming up. I don't know if you can see this. This is in black and white, but we will have an exclusive preview. We are going to be inviting the MP, the MPP, Mr. Mayor, and a few local people. My list includes Wayne Gretzky, and it goes on and on, but I will just say that we haven't, but that will be a good opportunity to approach him on that.
Councillor Gatward, I think that's really incredible that the first dealing that you send to the new MP is the Women's Institute. Oh, holy doodle. He'll be asking for a recount, Councillor Gatward. And anyway, is there any other, I don't even know what the amendments say. I don't know what the motion says. Maybe I could refer to the clerk to see whether she could read it out loud as to what we're voting on.
Sure can. So the motion is that the request from the Adelaide Hunter Hoodless Homestead for emergency funding in the amount of $25,000 be approved, that staff be directed to review additional operational support that could be provided to the homestead, and that the homestead be directed to consider the county's 2022 grants process for future budget needs.
Everyone's clear? Nothing to add? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and your councillors. We really, really do appreciate it. And we will do our very best to get this up and running and viable in the very near future.
Yeah, we know you will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 4.5 on the agenda, Joshua Kovacs. Is Josh here? Joshua?
He's just connecting to audio right now.
Okay. Joshua? Hello? Oh, he's trying to get there. Hello, Joshua. You're on mute, sir.
Unmute. Okay, that good?
Hi, Josh. Could you, because you're the only individual as a delegation tonight, could you just give us your name and your address, please, Josh, before you start?
Okay, yeah. Hi, I'm Josh Kovacs. Well, Joshua Kovacs. I live at 246 Cockshut Road with my parents right now. I want to move out, but yeah. And the Brant rides did help me get with the jobs a lot. But yeah, how are you guys?
We're good. We're good. Thank you. You have 10 minutes, Josh, to tell us everything you want to, and then we're going to ask you some questions.
Okay, so like the problem with the Brant rides, like even the people that are working that we're calling and talking to, they're the ones that are saying, like, they're the ones that are having the issues with it. They're telling us that they're having to deny seniors who have used their rides multiple times because everything's all booked up. It's all booked up like a month in advance, like online and offline. And like a lot of the seniors, they don't use the online because it's an app you have to download on the phone. They're going to call in, right? You know what I mean? Like they're not, like, I don't know. My papa, he wouldn't use an app on a phone. He's going to call if he's going to do something. But yeah, so they don't know, they're not really tech savvy and they don't really do that. So they'll have to call in, and then they call in and get told that they can't book an appointment within their book a ride to get to their appointment because it's all booked up. And not even just like for the week, it's all booked up like a whole month and a half in advance. Like I've tried to get rides to go to job interviews to get my jobs and go to my just daily go back and forth to my job. And I can't because it's literally just all booked up months in advance. And we're getting told that they're literally apologizing. They're crying. Like my mom said, the one girl was literally crying on the phone to her. She's like, I'm so sorry. Like they had to cancel all the rides for my brother because my brother got like a cold. He didn't get COVID. He just got a cold. So he had to go get the whole tested and everything. Thank God it wasn't COVID. But yeah. So they had to cancel those rides. Well, they were just supposed to postpone them, but they ended up just having to cancel it because they had to use those rides that were available for him for other people. Because all these students, what they're doing, they're booking the rides online and offline, and then they're canceling it like right before. So like the drivers themselves aren't getting that notice that they're canceling it, and they're still going there. Like the system's not that fast. I guess they still need to update their system further. But then like the students are just taking advantage of it. Like they'll pre-book it like a couple months in advance, and they're just doing it just to go to fast food places. Like we talked with the people there and the drivers and all that, and that's what they're doing. They're just going to like McDonald's or something for lunch at school. And it's just like, really? If you have the money, because it's $5. So if you're paying $5 to go there and you're paying $5 to come back, and then you're paying like what, how much you're paying at McDonald's, like 15 bucks for a lunch. And you're saying you can't just bring a lunch in, you're saying you can't do that. Like, that's just laziness. And like, and they're just, and then we were told that they're being told not to take advantage of it and all that. And then that they're preaching discrimination, that they're being discriminated against. It's like, that's not discrimination. You're just being a brat. Like, that's just being a brat, in my opinion. Like, that's not, that's not discrimination at all. Like, I don't know about you, but yeah. Then another thing I was just talking about was the whole, like, they could, a bus route to and from Paris would be very helpful for a lot of people. Like getting that to and from, because a lot of people, that's what they're using it for too. Like a 6 a.m. job, they're having a 7 a.m. job and they're needing to get a ride there. And we're all like, I've been on the ride with people there. That's what it is. And we're all just going for a job that starts at 7 a.m. and we're all getting on there and we're all going to like to Paris or something. So having a bus route there, a lot of people would be using it. Like every temp agency I've talked to, I tell them about Brant rides. Like I want them to use it. I feel like it's the more people that use it, the better it's going to be. Like, exposure, the more it's used, the more they're going to be able to get more information done on it. But yeah, just the main problem that it's just being abused by the students who know how to use the online and offline and know how to contact a lot of people. And like, it's hard because they're just being, pardon my language, assholes. And they're just like, because they're getting told that they're like, my brother said he went on a ride with them and he mentioned it. He's like, this is, seniors are missing their appointments because of this. And they're just did not care. And he was just like, he was just not up for it. He was just like, what the heck? But yeah, I guess that's all I got to say for now, is that they're just being, because a lot of, when I first used it, yeah, it was like, we were told that they were supposed a person like throughout the day that would just be like open, available. So if they got those on calls, like an on-call person all the time, but they can't do that because they're so busy with everybody booking and canceling rides multiple, like throughout the whole day and week. But yeah, I think that's everything.
Well, that's a lot, Josh.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And I thank you for bringing those all to our attention. Are there any questions for Josh? I think he's very concerned. He's very frustrated. I think his concerns come from the right place. Are there any suggestions? Councillor Howes, Councillor Pierce.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have questions for Josh. I understand the message that he's delivering to us and appreciate the feedback. When the time is right, I'm prepared to make a motion on how to deal with this and try and move things in the right direction.
Thank you. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm looking for some clarification here. I'm trying to understand, Josh, are you trying to get to the point where you're trying to book a ride and they're not available, so you're thinking that we need more units? Or is your issue the fact that rides are being booked and they're canceled and there's nothing they can do about it?
Yeah, that's one of the main rides too, is that the main problem. What you said there, I feel like that's both the problems. That like a lot of people need that, like, to be able to book that ride, book a ride within the 2 days. Like an elderly person is not going to know they're going to need a doctor's appointment like 2 weeks. Okay, so I don't know, but my mom, when she gets told she's getting a doctor's appointment, she usually gets told like, okay, come within like 2-3 days or like a week later. And then like, I mean, she has my dad to drive her, but like say an elderly person doesn't need that. Like they don't have my dad to drive her. They drive them. Sorry. I'm just got to think.
Okay. So I sorry to cut you off there, Josh. What I'm hearing here, your biggest concern is the fact that you're being told by Brant Transit that a lot of these rides around the noon hour are being booked and then canceled.
Yeah, that's what it is too. A lot of it's like that. And then like, Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's just being booked and canceled, and it's not really they can't really say no because they are canceling it. They're doing it right. They're canceling it, but they're canceling it like a couple minutes beforehand and all that. Like I don't know. They just need maybe a better like software, but like thing to process it all. I don't know how that all works. A better application to the. I'm not very tech savvy when it comes to that. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you. Councillor Ferrier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a little context that may be helpful. So I do know we've talked a few times, and just to address a couple of your concerns, Josh, with the city of Brantford about the potential for a route to augment and enhance Brant Transit. So, you know, when we first started this transit system, any fixed bus line for a community that doesn't have one becomes really, really expensive. And during COVID, a lot of municipalities spent millions of dollars on empty bus routes that had to run all the time. Our system's more scalable, so we were able to not spend all that money on transit during a time when people weren't using it as much. That said, the good news is that we can partner with places like Ride Norfolk and Brantford Transit, and we have been in discussions with some of that. So that hopefully will be on the way in the future. The other piece to remember too, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Josh, is that we can also scale up. So we've had to scale back at times because we aren't allowed to do ride sharing. We can scale up, which means have more cars, more drivers. But also remember when in March 28th, which happens to be my birthday, a lot of the restrictions are going to go out the window in Ontario. So we'll be able to have a little more flexibility for people to share rides again. And that's been a big bottleneck for what's been happening. Just according to staff. So this is a very new system. If this was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you would have had to pay for a taxi for everything.
Oh yeah, I know that.
But it takes a little time to sort it out. And Councillor Miller will tell you this too. When we first started this, we were told by all the consultants, it takes 3 to 5 years to really get your feet under you as a transit community. So thanks for bringing this to our attention. Hopefully that provides a little context, and hopefully Councillor Howe's motion will help a little bit too. So thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, when I read this, I was quite concerned. This system wasn't created for students to go to McDonald's at lunchtime, in my opinion. It was created to help those in need who need a ride for an appointment, or those people who don't drive to go to the hospital to visit a friend, if that's even allowed yet.
Yeah, I don't even know.
And I think that Josh's concern is quite legitimate, because I've heard of other instances where rides have been canceled, and so people call a taxi because they can't get a Brant Transit, and then both show up. So we need to look at the cancellation policies, and those people at the high school maybe need to find a different way to go to McDonald's. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, I just want to make a comment here. And again, it's kind of back to what I was going to before. This is a public transit system. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, it's for people who are going to appointments, but yes, it's also for people who want to take it to McDonald's. I don't think that's the issue. The issue is the canceling of the rides. So again, I just want to make that very clear, the fact that anybody is able to use this system.
Yeah.
No, I agree. We need to find a better way to potentially avert these cancellations.
Because I agree, there definitely is something up with the cancellations too, because one time I canceled a ride and it showed up and I was like, where are you going? And like, I canceled that like 2 weeks ago. Like, why is that even here right now? It's like, that doesn't even, and the rider was just upset. He was like, what? It's like, I'm just wasting my time now. He wasn't upset with me. He was like upset with why wasn't he informed?
Yeah, that's right. Councillor Ferrier.
Yeah, just last point, that again, just to echo, though, students, when we did the research for this, previous to me being on council, when Councillor Miller and Councillor Cardy were on the working group for transit, students were actually one of the underserved populations we are hoping to serve. We want them to get the co-op. We want them to get to work as well.
Well, yeah,
It isn't,
co-op and
it
work,
isn't,
yeah.
it isn't a senior shuttle service. It isn't a kids shuttle service. It is public transit for all the public, and we can enhance it. Absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hills, I'm looking for direction now for the delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'll do a motion first, and then I have a couple of comments with your latitude if there's a second. To start with, I move that the feedback from Josh is referred to our staff for their consideration as they approach the refinement of the Brant Transit program.
Seeking a seconder. Councillor Coleman, thank you. And you have comments, Councillor House?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As it's on the table now, the feedback that Josh has given us, it's an opportunity for us for staff to analyze ridership, modify the program, which is something that they're doing on a regular basis anyway, but we need all the feedback we can get, feedback from Josh, feedback from other people. And it's an opportunity for us to reinforce how this service is positioned in our community, to reinforce that it is a transit service for everyone. It's not a taxi service. It's not a limo service. It's something that has to be booked 24 hours in advance. As Councillor Gatward pointed out, we may need to bring in some more strict policies regarding people who frequently cancel appointments on a very, very regular basis. These are all things that the staff are going to have to look at. As Josh pointed out, the more people that use this service, the better. That allows us to grow and to increase the capacity for this service. You know, some of us will remember 30, 35, 40 years ago, there was a municipal bus that drove around Paris, and it was 95% empty all the time.
Oh, damn.
That's not a sustainable service for the community. What we have is a sustainable service that is in its infancy, that has been hit by a pandemic and within its first couple of years. So I look forward to seeing how staff will bring forward recommendations going into next year that'll help improve everything.
Thank you. Councillor Miller, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff, I was wondering when would we see the next, because we were getting them on a somewhat regular basis, reports on the transportation program. So when will we see the next report? When's that coming forward?
Allison?
Thank you, Your Worship. We're planning on bringing a report forward, if not for the end of the year, early in 2022. We do realize that we're at a point where we are likely going to have to increase the fleet for BTS, which is a good place to be. It means we have a lot more demand than we certainly did previously. The ridership sort of spiked around September. I think when students went back in school and people, some people went back to work after the summer holidays, and that seems to be sustained. Again, which is a good thing. We've started some industrial commuter programs that connect with Brantford Transit and also within Cambridge with Cambridge Transit or Kitchener-Waterloo, Transit. So we are looking at increasing the fleet, and we hope to have some timing on that. It is covered in our cost. There would be no cost increase for the county. It is covered under our current contract with BTS, and we'll be bringing forward recommendations and timing on how that will roll out. Like I said, hopefully early in 2022.
Thank you. Councillor Miller?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the answer. Thank you. And I think it has been mentioned a couple times already. It's a young program, and it's evolving, and it's going to change. And I think our guest tonight has identified some of those growing pains that we have. And I think if we didn't recognize some of these growing pains and react to them, I think we got a problem. But the fact is, we are listening to them, we are recognizing them, and it's going to evolve. And as Councilor Ferry pointed out, maybe we,
Take some
maybe we
time.
partner with Brantford on their transit. Maybe we partner with Norfolk. We don't know what the future looks like, but as long as that are continuing to look at it, I think I can accept that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we're clear. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Josh. We have all your comments on record, and we're
Thank
going
you.
to see what we can do about them for you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Leave now. That's all good.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, moving on to number 5, please. The adoption of the minutes in the previous meetings. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Howes, that the County of Brant Council minutes of September 28th and October 12th, 2021 be approved.
Are there any comments or concerns? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor to receive? Opposed and carried. Thank you. Business arising from those minutes? No. Consent items to be received. We have a number of them. Councillor Chambers, do we want to? Yep, sorry.
I'll move, and Councillor Wheat seconds that we receive them all.
We received them all. Nothing to be separated. We're going to receive them all. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. Committee reports. Planning and Development Committee, please, from October the 5th. Councillor Miller, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, it is. No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that would be moved by myself, second by Councilor Bell, that the Planning and Development Committee report of October 5th, 2021 be approved.
Are there any questions to Councillor Miller or his report? Seeing none, call the vote to receive. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. 8.2 Policy Development and Strategic Direction Committee. That is Councillor McAlpine.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gatward that the Policy Development Strategic Direction Committee report of October 12th, 2021 be approved.
Any questions for Councillor McAlpine? Seeing none, call the vote to receive. All those in favor? And there's no one opposed. Thank you. Administration and Operations Committee report of October the 19th. And that's Councillor Pierce, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman that the Administration and Operations Committee report of October 19th be approved, noting that there are 8 recommendations.
Any questions for Councillor Pierce or his report? Councillor Gatward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regarding number the recommendation for the Gainesville Community Center, I'm wondering if it was in the report. I don't remember seeing it. What or how are we going to service the sewage for the community center in Gainesville? I believe we do have municipal water out there. So I'm just wondering, will it be on a septic bed or a holding tank until such time as sewers are available?
Councillor Pierce, you want staff to come in on this?
Mr. Mayor, I see Mr. Walton coming in. I'd like him to go on that one.
Thank you. Just Mr. Walton. Mr. Walton, are you frozen? We We can't hear you, Mr. Walton. See what you've done to Mr. Walton, Councillor Gatward?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gatward. There are sanitary sewer pipes in front of this property. This is a use that's being moved from its current location to the new facility, and we intend to hook it onto the sanitary sewers.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Walton. Any other questions to Councillor Pierce on his report? Councillor Chambers?
Mr. Mayor, it's not a question, but it's the minutes of the report on the same topic, the Kingsville Community Center.
Yeah.
There's a mistake in the report and in the minutes. So I hope when the minutes come back to the committee that they can be amended correctly. The minutes in the report show that there was a recorded vote on the recommendation regarding the community center, and it has me voting in favor. Actually, I wasn't even there. So I would have voted in favor if I was there, and but that's just not how it happened. So if that can be corrected, and it can be noted that I fully support the community center, even though I wasn't there to vote in the recorded vote, that correction can be made. So that's my comment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Well, it does matter, Councillor Chambers, so thank you for bringing it to our attention. It's back to everybody should vote because one vote makes a difference. So I'm sure they're going to correct that. Are there any other questions to Councillor Pierce's report, Councillor Gatward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I just had one. Number 8, we are going to be moving the customer service offices to the libraries. And will we be getting an update later this year as to the progress that's being made on this change?
Councillor Pierce?
What sort of progress are you looking for, Councillor? It was voted that that's what we're going to do. Are you looking to how it's going to be rolled out, or what is the progress you're looking at?
How it's going to be rolled out, and when will the customer service offices, the various ones, be available for community to actually go in and use them?
I don't recall if there was a date set on it. I don't know if Mr. Bradley is around who could comment on that. I can't recall an actual date.
I can't either, but that's why I asked if we'd have an update later this year. That might give us an actual date. Thank you.
Heather Fair is there as well. She was involved with Adam on this.
Mr. Chair, I can say that we would be providing Friday file memos to council as we move closer to what we call the openings of the offices, and then likely doing press releases to indicate to the community that they're opening. I don't think we have any plans on doing any further council reports, but if council wants another report, they can direct us to bring one forward.
Is that good, Councillor Gatward? You're on mute, Councillor Gatward.
Sorry, that's fine, as long as we're updated somehow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions for Councillor Pierce? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor to receive his reports? Opposed? Carried. The appointment of number 8.4, appointment of the Integrity Commissioner, report from working group. Who wants to talk?
Yeah, I have this.
Okay, thank you.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Miller. Councillor Miller, that report RPT-21-287, appointment of an Integrity Commissioner be approved and awarded to Melinda Monroe Strategic Perspectives, annual retainer 12,000, hourly rate of 250, and at cost, mileage, and incidentals.
Any comments or concerns about the reappointment of the Integrity Commissioner? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed and carried, thank you. Staff reports, 9A. Counselor House.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Miller that staff report RPT 21-288 be approved.
Are there any questions to the staff report? No? All those in favor? Opposed and carried? We have no communications, is that right, Heather?
Correct.
No resolutions?
Correct.
We're going to go in camera? Is that right?
Unless there's other business.
I don't believe there was any other business, was there? I didn't ask, I don't think either, but is there any other business? No? Then we'll have a motion to go in camera. Councillor Pierce and Councillor House, all those in favor? You can put us in camera, please, Heather.
Mayor Bailey, just before we go back online, we will need a motion to ratify those decisions in open session.
So moved.
And I think you're on mute, Mayor Bailey.
Councillor Coleman and Councillor Laferriere, all those in favor? Councillor Gatward, are you in favor? No? Opposed?
Which item are we on, Mr. Mayor?
We're just ratifying everything we just did in camera.
Both together?
Yes.
I'd like to separately, please.
All right. We'll take that, but well, we can't retake a vote. You missed your cue there, Joan. They're together and we voted. You're either opposed or you abstain. I don't know what else to tell you. The vote's been taken. Moving
You're
on.
mute again.
Who? I'm not on mute. Am I?
No, Councillor Gatward.
Councillor Gatward.
It wasn't stated, Mr. Mayor, what we were voting on.
Okay. The clerk.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Point of order. The clerk stated exactly what the vote was for, and then you called the vote. There was a mover and a seconder. The clerk stated what we had to do. You called the vote. There was a mover and a seconder, and the vote was had.
I know. I know.
Was it for 13.1? We don't usually vote on in-camera items together.
Well, we just have Councillor Gatward.
Okay, well, I want it known I'm opposed.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Point of order. We had two votes. We didn't vote on them together in the. Now, just a point of information. I guess we're going to have the vote to ratify together, but we had the votes in camera separately, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
We're ratifying what we did in camera.
Yeah, the ratification vote.
That's all I said it was.
Exactly.
Piece of cake.
Okay. We're going to do bylaws. Councillor Wheat, you're going to start bylaws.
Yep. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Chambers, that bylaw number 110-21 right through to bylaw 120-21 be approved. First reading.
Thank you. All those in favor of the first reading? Councillor Wheat, if you could try it again, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Chambers, the second reading of bylaws, bylaw 110-21 through to bylaw 120-21 be approved.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the second reading of the bylaws? Seeing none, Councillor Wheat, could you do it for the third time, please?
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Chambers, that bylaw 110-21 through to bylaw 120-21 be approved, passed, signed, sealed, and executed.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, did we vote on the second one?
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
I think we did.
I'm in favor, by the way.
We didn't vote in the second. We just.
Okay, I'm going to take it back then. We're going to vote on the second. All those in favor? Thank you. There were no questions, and we got the third reading finished. All those in favor of the third reading, please, as they stand. Thank you. Opposed? Taking us to number 15, which is the next meeting, which is November the 23rd. Councillor Miller?
Just want to point out it's Jennifer and I's 30th wedding anniversary tonight. I can tell you our evening 30 years ago was much, much different than it was this year. So
what a date.
Sure hope so.
What a date.
You're not even in the same location tonight, are you?
I know.
Boy, oh boy, that's tricky.
Congrats.
That's called dedication, just so you know, dedication.
Councillor, did anyone else have anything to say? Councillor Gatward? Councillor Gatward is gone. Okay, if there's nothing.
I do have one thing, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor. There's a news report out that Councillor Weaver from Brantford has resigned. And I just wanted to thank him for his many years of service before and after politics, and working with both communities on a number of things, including in the county, a lot of our biking push and he was a good friend for many years, and wish him well.
Yeah, you know what? We all do. He was a good counselor, and he was a good friend to the county of Brant. So I do wish him well. I do wish him well. I hadn't heard that yet, Mark. So thank you for telling us that. Is there anything else for the betterment of the county of Brant? Seeing none, meeting's adjourned. Thank you. We'll talk to you all soon.
Have a good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.